Hey guys, what's going on? Druzy here, back again with another South Park Phone Destroyer video, and going to do a video on a lot of people's favorite series here on the channel, and that is the tier list video. Now I know it's been about 2.5 months or so since I've done one of these, so this is going to be the end of 2019 summary of where the meta is, in my opinion, right now within the current game. I am going to post a link in the description, as many of you have commented on the most recent version of this tier list video, of a place to go for a way to kind of look at where they think the meta is right now based on other people within Legendary Arena that have gathered information and all that stuff. So these types of tier videos are my opinion only. I did not get this opinion from other people, from other sources. This is my own personal opinion of where I think the meta is right now. So this is the tier list that I have established for myself right now. I've made some decent changes from previous videos. So if you guys want to see where I think the meta is right now, that's what this video is for. But I will leave a link in the description down below for the actual tier list that a lot of people are currently using on Legendary Ladder and stuff like that. Also, this tier list video varies on certain factors. Number one, this video focuses mostly on Legendary Arena right now. So this is based on my experience within Legendary Arena and things like that, and based on how often certain cards are played and how effective those cards can be, in my opinion. Now, level does kind of matter, because some Legendary cards may be in the B or C tier at, say, Legendary level 2, level 3, but maybe at levels 5 or 6, they could be at G or even A tier. They could actually be a legitimately strong card. Obviously, card level always matters in these kind of things, and this tier list video isn't necessarily for Bronze or Silver League and things like that. It's mostly to focus around Legendary, but if you could get these certain cards to good levels, they could actually be able to boost you up into Legendary Arena, in my opinion. So that's where we're going with this. So we're going to break down each of the 6 current themes within the game, and then wrap up the video where I think what theme is the strongest theme in the game right now of Phone Destroyer. So let's just get started with Adventure. Alright guys, we are looking at Adventure, and I have gold bracketed cards that have either had changes done to them, or I have moved them and changed them in some fashion. So Messenger Woman Sharon got a nerf a little while ago. She has been now shifted down to A tier, in my opinion, from G tier. She was one of the strongest cards in the entire game. The fact she was able to heal your new kid and your units to insane godly amounts of healing health. Now that that has now been reduced significantly for the new kid, I don't think she's quite as strong as she once was. Obviously, she was an elite card in the game, probably one of the best cards in the entire game. I feel like she's taken a step down just because of that. She's still very good because she can heal your own units godly amounts, and if you have Hanky or Psalm, which many run with Adventure for obvious reasons, to use Stain of Many Moons as often as humanly possible, I think Sharon still provides value, so I didn't move her down too far. For Lightning, I've shifted Lightning up from A tier to G tier. Lightning is one of the strongest spell cards in the entire game. It doesn't fully cancel most cards, but it's a relatively cheap cost. You can cycle through it. It'll do decent new kid damage, and can also do a good amount of damage to one specific unit. So Lightning is definitely a card for newer players. You should focus on, level this card as quickly as possible, and request it. If you want to run Adventure, you need Lightning at a good level. I have Incan Craig highlighted in gold in A tier because I think he might be shifting downward, in my opinion. I think that if you have him to a good level, at level 4, he's very viable in Legendary Arena. At level 3, I don't feel like he's viable right now. The reduction done to his Warcry has really kind of hindered him, and obviously it was too strong at one point, so it needed to be tweaked. But now I feel like, unless he's level 4 for you, I would not really run Incan Craig in Legendary Arena. I'm not sure about it, and obviously you don't get him till late in the arenas anyways, so it's going to be hard to level him in those factors right there. So Incan Craig, to me, I have him bracketed only because I think he might be shifting downward in the near future. And down in the bottom that my camera is kind of blocking, Shaman Token is highlighted. He will be receiving a buff of a health increase by up to, I think, almost 60% increase in health, and then his charge ability will be increased as far as how fast it comes back. I still don't think this will be enough for Shaman Token. I don't know where he's at right now. Right now, to me, Shaman Token is the worst card in the entire game, hands down. And the fact of the matter is that this is definitely going to help him. I feel like this will shift him up to at least B tier, but I do not see this shooting him up all the way to G tier or making him completely overpowered. But that's kind of where I feel like Adventure is right now. Let's shift it now to Sci-Fi. Alright, so the theme to me that may have made some big changes is Sci-Fi. I feel like Sci-Fi is in a much better spot right now than it was previously. So the Visitors, I have shifted. At one point was in G tier. At one point, or C tier, I'm sorry. Visitors was one of the worst cards in the game. But with the buffs that they received and the fact that so many people now are having them at level 5 and level 6, if you have level 6 visitors, they are G tier hands down. Low energy cost, ridiculous attack speed, the fact that there are so many cards that can boost their damage. Bradley, Bounty Hunter Kyle within the same theme. Other Kyles obviously can boost the actual damage of visitors. I mean, visitors pair very well with a sci-fi fantasy. That's a very popular theme combination right now. I will be doing a theme combo video here in the near future. I will talk about some of the best combos within the game right now. Visitors, though, are extremely strong with paired with the right theme. They can work well in a variety of situations. To me, they are definitely G tier now. I have Space Warrior Token and Alien Queen Red. Both cards have received nerfs over the course of the last time I've made some of these tier lists. I really feel like Space Warrior Token's in a really good spot. He's flirting with G tier to me. He's a low cost, 2 energy cost unit. A lot of people have him to 5, to have him to 6, and his charge ability, pretty decent. The fact that it does some decent damage, the fact that he will hit the nearest unit in front of him, you can do really good damage to the new kid if you time it correctly. But if I have him at level 6, and at level 6 he's very good for me. He's very good for people in lower level arenas because it makes sci-fi a very quick, cheap cycle theme unit. When you've got things like Enforcer Jimmy at 2, you've got Space Warrior Token at 2, Visitors can be 3. You've got Warboy Tweak up there. He's only 3 energy cost. You got a whole bunch of cards right now that, in my opinion, because they're a little bit cheaper cycle, so it makes him a lot more viable. Alien Queen Red received a buff. She's shifted up from B to A tier. I don't have her at G tier at all. Well, I feel like maybe she could be someday. I just don't think that she is right now. But her buff to her overall stats and then her poison damage lasts until the unit dies, which is nice because there was a base amount of poison that it used to do, but now it does infinitely unless it's purified or taken away from like Shaman Token or purified, things like that. But outside of that, she's going to poison those units down, do a ton of damage, and she's very viable right now at 5 and 6 in Legendary Arena. I shifted down Mind Control from A to B. I don't see as many people running Mind Control anymore for sci-fi decks. You don't really need to if you're running Bradley with these cheap range cycle decks. You don't need Mind Control. You don't really need to take effect of another unit because unless you can kill Bradley quickly, he's just going to make all your range units just so overpowered that you don't even need to really take over anybody. So that's why I've shifted Mind Control down. Power Fist Dougie received a nerf, so he's down. He was, in my opinion, the strongest Dougie in the game before his nerf. Now, since his nerf, it takes 2 or 3 hits, even at level 6, to hit a level 24 new kid and dwindle down my bar. Like, I can survive almost 3 hits from Power Fist Dougie at level 24. He's not as good as he once was. Yeah, the freeze is still there, which is still makes him a little bit better than some of the other Dougies, but I don't think he's as good as he once was, so that's why he's shifted down. And Poison received a buff. I don't think Poison really, the buff really affects it and makes it too much better. I believe I shifted it from C to B in this tier list, but I think that Poison works really well for challenge mode now. It helps take out weaker units, and it might be better in Bronze Shield and possibly Silver Shield, but in Legendary Arena, you don't see a lot of people running it. It still could be viable for that, just for the sheer fact that if you're able to use as much poison as possible, it could help counter some of these Bradley decks and things like that. But to me, poisons primarily should be used to take out swarms and range units that are very hard to deal with otherwise. That's really the only viability that poison has right now in the meta. So to me, poison really isn't super strong, which is why I have it at B tier. But that's it for sci-fi now. Let's shift it over to mystical. Alright guys, looking at Mystical, and Mystical, I didn't change too much about it. We did see a new card come into the Mystical theme since I last did a tier list video, and that of course is Jesus, who's down in C tier. Jesus is really bad, guys. He's not that great of a card, in my opinion, right now. I mean, I have him at level 3. I don't know many people that have him very high leveled, so that obviously takes into consideration. But again, I don't think Jesus is that good. Yes, he has both a War Cry and a Death Wish, I believe. So, you know, he comes back to life, resurrects. So you got to look at the fact that he basically has double health, double damage, just for the sheer fact that he revives. But he revives in the same spot where he died at. So oftentimes that doesn't really help you at all, because he dies in a spot where maybe he's surrounded by a bunch of swarm units and then he gets immediately decimated and killed right away. I bracketed Witch Doctor Token because he's still broken. He's still definitely in G tier. But he did receive a nerf since the last time I did one of these videos. He received a 5% decrease in health, I believe, since the last time I did this. That was not enough. To me, Witch Doctor Broken, still one of the strongest legendaries in the entire game. He's still very, very good. I bracketed Zen Cartman. He did not change anywhere within the meta, in my opinion, as far as the tier list. But he did receive a nerf to his overall base health, but he's still extremely strong. He's still one of the top 2 tanks in the entire game right now. I don't think there's been any change to Zen Cartman overall, really. He's still used a lot by mystical users. If you have him at level 5, level 6, he's still going to be useful for you. If you have him at any levels lower than that, I wouldn't use him at all. But if you have him at 5, have him at 6, he's still viable in Legendary. He's very viable at 6. I don't know anybody that has him to 7. I'm not saying nobody does, but I don't know anybody. I've never seen a level 7 Zen Cartman, in all honesty, but I'm sure he's out there somewhere. I did move up Imp Tweak, I believe, from C to B. But I also think that Imp Tweak could be flirting with A, in my opinion. I think that if you have a level 5 Imp Tweak, I think Imp Tweak is a lot better than people give him credit for. I have a lot of fun using him. I've had a lot of situations where I've been able to kind of use him a little bit more strategically. He's one of my favorite cards in the entire game, which is unfortunate he's a Mystical because I really don't like using Mystical personally. But I feel like Imp Tweak's a little bit better than people give him credit for, like I now have said multiple times. So that's why I have him bracketed. I think he's on the verge of moving up in the tier list, in my opinion. Hallelujah, I shifted down from A to B. I don't feel Hallelujah is used as often anymore. It still has viability. It's still not completely useless to me, but I just don't. I don't see a lot of Hallelujah being used or regen really hardly at all. And you don't really need to much anymore. I mean, if you're able to get Ninju off with this theme, or use a Pope Timmy at the right time to get the right unit back alive, you don't really need Hallelujah to keep these units alive. You're going to be able to take 1 or 2 bars probably fairly quickly, so that's why Hallelujah is a little bit down for me as far as usefulness. But it's still viable. I'm not saying it's completely trash, but I don't see it used as often in Legendary Arena as I used to at one time. But that's where I think Mystical's at right now, guys. Let's shift it now to superheroes. Alright guys, looking at superheroes right now, there has been 1 card added to this theme since I last recorded a video, and that was Mintberry Crunch. Mintberry Crunch I have in the A tier. I did completely shift the way that I look at superheroes, so I completely redid this whole tier list. So some cards may have changed that I did not mention here, that I did gold bracket, so I am sorry for that. But Call Girl did receive a buff. She is in B tier. I moved her up from C to B just because she received a buff of 1 reduction in energy cost, so she went from 7 to 6, which was a huge buff to her, and it's made her a little bit more viable. I still don't think she's an amazing card, but I still think she's much more viable now, and I do like where Call Girl is right now. She does need a slight tweak to either her health or a little bit to damage. I don't think she needs a huge damage buff. A lot of people think she needs a big percentage increase to both health and damage, but she has really good attack speed, so I think it's a dangerous trend if you give her too much damage increase. I think if you give her at least health, she'd be really good, and I think she'd actually be perfect where she would be at if that were the case. I moved Tupperware down from G to A tier. I still think Tupperware is still very good, and I mean, the fact that he's immune to almost everything makes him a very useful card, but I feel like he's taken a mild step back just because a lot more people have really invested in the superheroes theme. And it seems like Tupperware has lost a little bit of his advantage just with the way some of the cards are now currently going on in the meta. But I mean, like, he's not going to be affected by poison, he's not going to be affected by spells, he's not going to be affected by abilities. There's still some viability for him, obviously. And if you have him at level 6 in Legendary Arena, he's still good. But I don't think he's as good as he once was, in my opinion. But Mosquito and Human Kite are both highlighted in the G tier because there probably will be nerfs done to them in the near future. I know Redlink's hinted that there is going to be changes done to these 2 cards. They have not announced what it would be, and it's not going to be taking effect in this coming balance changes, but it's probably going to happen in January or in February. I'm sorry, it's probably going to happen either in February or in March. You're going to see these 2 cards nerfed to some degree. Mosquito and Human Kite are running rampant. They're very strong in lower arenas. They're very strong in upper arenas. Superheroes are a very strong theme that people did not take into consideration with their card scaling until most recently, now that people are really starting to notice how good these cards are. Also, Toolshed I shifted up from, I believe, B tier or A tier up to G tier. Toolshed is very strong. If you have him at level 5, he's a really good epic card. I mean, because the fact that you have his Chomper scale is very nice. And the Chomper does some really good damage. I can do that brief stun is very good. And then his overall damage output and stats are very well scaled. I think Toolshed's in a really good spot. That's why I've shifted him up. But that's where I think superheroes are now, guys. All right, guys, looking at fantasy real quick, there have been some changes done to the fantasy theme that I have done here in the tier list. So we have Bradley still highlighted. Bradley's still one of the strongest cards of the entire game. He's still up there in G tier, and I assume he has had a nerf done to him slightly where his movement speed was increased, or the damage buff that he gave to the ranged units was decreased slightly, but I still think Bradley is still a G tier card. It's still one of the strongest cards in the entire game right now. Then you had Underpants Gnomes has had a huge jump from their buff that they received a damage and health increase. To me, Underpants Gnomes is is probably the best swarm unit in the game, maybe behind Cox, but Underpants Gnomes are extremely strong. They attack extremely fast and hard, and with just the 3 units of them, but they are really hard to deal with if you are not smart about them. They are running rampant right now for fantasy users. For obvious reasons, you should be using them if you're running fantasy right now. You should be leveling and getting Underpants Gnomes to a good level. At level 6, they are devastating. At level 5, they're very good. And even at 3, they'd be good for you down low in Bronze or Silver Shield. Sorceress Leanne was added to the game. She is highlighted there. She's in the A tier. I thought that Sorceress Leanne would push this theme to the next level. I really thought that she would be a game-changing card. She's basically another wipe card to go along with Cock Magic and Transmog for this theme, but she has not quite lived up to what I thought she was going to be. I still think she's a very useful card. I do have a video that's going to be coming out in a couple of days with her in it. If you guys have not seen Sorceress Leanne, I have done other content with her as well. But I think Sorceress Leanne is actually not that terrible of a card. That's why she's an A. I have moved down Rogue Token from A tier to B tier. I think that Rogue Token has taken a step back in Legendary Arena. I don't think he's being used quite as often. He's still very good with his Warcry at clearing out swarms, but I feel like Labar Jimmy, who's an A tier, who's not bracketed, but he is kind of more the poor man's Aerostorm. I feel like Rogue Token, a little bit, he's a cheaper cost than Labar Jimmy, so that's a plus for him. And he's got pretty decent stats as an epic card when he's not being used for his Warcry, but his Warcry is his main focus. And I feel like, again, like I've said in the past, Rogue Token went from one of the best cards in the entire game down slightly just because of all the health buffs that were given to epics and legendaries quite a while ago within this meta. And because of all those kind of things, you've just now seen Rogue Token, I think, just slightly in a different light. I still think he's useful, and I still use him personally, but I don't think he's quite as strong as he once was, just in my opinion, overall. All right, guys, the last thing we're going to look at is Neutral. Neutral has had, like I said, 2 cards added to it since we last did this video. We had Mayor McDaniels come in, who she is an A tier in my opinion. She has a really interesting Warcry where she basically cancels out. She basically acts like Power Bind, but only temporarily. She temporarily wipes away all charged ability progress for both friendly units and enemy units. So a lot of people thought, okay, it would only affect enemy units. This is actually a really good card to counter a lot of the charge unit meta, especially with Santa and things like that. But actually, you're seeing that she also affects your own units too. So she has to be situationally played to be useful, in my opinion. But I feel like Mayor McDaniels is a little bit underrated card. I feel like she could shift up tiers, even to G tier, in the future because her stats scale very well and her Warcry is actually pretty useful for people like me. I don't run a lot of spells when I play. There are a ton of people that do run multiple cancel cards when they play in this game, which is much smarter than what I generally do. But I feel like for someone like me, Mayor McDaniels could be a card that I hopefully try to get leveled up a little bit faster and could be very viable for me in the future. Satan, I shifted up from C tier to B tier. I feel like Satan's in a much better spot. I've seen a lot more Satan play lately. If you have a level 4, level 5 Satan, which I've seen a decent amount of level 5 Satans in Legendary Arena, he's very good. He's very good at level 4. He's not very good at level 3, which is where I have him. That's why I've had him so low for so long. But I feel like Satan's in a much better spot just with his Warcry. Yes, it was nerfed a couple of updates ago, but his stats scale decently well, and his Warcry is still useful, even with his card level at being 6 energy, but he provides some value with his Warcry and things like that. Classy, I have bracketed down in C tier. She is getting, some people are calling it a buff, some people are calling it a nerf. I think it's a nerf. Her movement speed is being increased. Yes, her enragement happens faster, but her enragement animation takes forever sometimes. She dies so quickly from her rage animation taking so long. Yes, it's being buffed from 50% damage to where the enragement happens up to 66% now. So when she's at 2/3 health, she will get her enragement and that damage bonus. I still don't feel like Classy is going to be that great. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I only have her to level 4. I do have her maxed at 4, so I will try her out once the changes take effect here next week. But I don't see Classy being that great of a card anyways going forward, to be honest with you. And President Garrison joined the game. President Garrison's a very unique card. He has both AoE attack for his base attack, which is a very slow animation. His dialogue is some of the best dialogue in the entire game. If you haven't heard it, I have had multiple streams where I've played President Garrison. I would highly recommend you check that out because his dialogue is hilarious. And he has a charge ability where he can do a ton of damage for you. His charge ability can be very useful and situationally very good for you, but it takes a while for that charge ability to take effect, and the AoE damage that he does, though decent scaling, it's such a slow animation that Nelly, bar none, does way better AoE damage than Garrison does, but she's a rare card versus he is an epic card. But at the same time, his health scaling is terrible, in my opinion. I think he needs a decently significant health buff, probably 6 to 8%, in my opinion. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it would if he's at a decent level. But you just don't see a lot of people with high-level Garrison, so maybe at level 5, he would be a decent epic card. Usually that's when epic cards really kind of come into their own, is usually at level 5. But even at level 5 right now, personally, I don't think he's that good. I think he'd still be down here in the lower tiers. But now that we've talked about all the tiers, let's now look at where I think and rank all the themes right now within the game. Alright guys, so the biggest change to me is Adventure has moved from 4 to 5. Adventure to me is the worst base theme in the game right now. The nerfs that were done to Sharon and the nerfs that were done to Ink and Craig, even though the Ink and Craig one was significantly long ago, I don't feel like Adventure's in a really good spot. I don't feel like Adventure can hold its own as its own theme. It needs a lot of help. It needs a good theme paired with it and some other cards to really make it good. I'm not saying Adventure's complete trash, and I see a lot of people still have success with Adventure, but I don't feel like Adventure is a good standalone theme anymore. It needs good neutral support. A lot of Santa and Hanky really help Adventure theme out, especially with Psalm. But if you have a good level Psalm, a 3 or a 4 level Psalm, you could do some decent damage with Adventure. If you have a level 4 Ink and Craig, you can do some decent damage with Adventure. But Adventure carries too much weight on its legendary cards right now, more than any other theme in my opinion. I don't like where Adventure is right now, and it's moved a tier down to me. SciFi has moved up because a ton of people are now using it with Fantasy and Mystical and having great success with SciFi. I think SciFi is in a much better spot. Superheroes remains at 3. It's closing in on 2, in all honesty. I feel like Fantasy is mildly taking a step back. I thought Leanne would push Fantasy forward more than it did. I don't feel like Sorceress Leanne did enough for me to push Fantasy over the edge, and I feel like Superheroes is catching up. Mintberry Crunch was a great addition to Superheroes, and Superheroes is only going to get at least 3 to 4 more cards, if not more, where soon Superheroes could be one of the best themes in the entire game here very soon. So Red Links has to be very cautious, in my opinion, with where they scale these superhero cards going forward. So I feel like Superheroes will soon easily become the best theme in the entire game if the cards keep scaling and being as strong as they have been. I mean, like Dr. Timothy was a nice addition, Mintberry Crunch was a great addition. Captain Diabetes wasn't the best addition, or Lava wasn't the greatest additions of all time, but as a whole, it's still a very strong theme. Fantasy is still where it's at. Mystical, to me, is still the strongest theme in the entire game. It's going to take a decent amount of work to really dethrone Mystical. Mystical is widely used. It's a very strong theme. It's never nerfed, hardly at all. And even if it is nerfed, like Zen Cartman and Witch Doctor Broken, they're still really good. They're still just a little bit weaker, but they're still very strong cards right now, to where Mystical is not in, or still is the strongest theme in the game right now. But this is where I think that currently the meta is within the game. Again, this is my opinion. There are other ways to look at it. Again, I will post out in the video description another way to look at where people are ranking the tiers of, or the current meta right now within this game. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I know you guys, a lot of you enjoy this series, and I will continue this series going forward into 2020. Let's look forward to hopefully a good year for Phone Destroyer in 2020. I'm hoping for that, and I hope you guys are interested and continue to grow within this game with myself. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, my name is Druzy.